place where political correctness is non-existent. Critical thinking is required and conservative common sense reigns supreme. This is the Whitfield analysis, and now, here is your host, Sam Whitfield.
Wow, folks. Wow. The GOP is done for. The Republican Party as a party has lost its conservative values. We've seen a decline in the true conservatism of the Republican Party, but now it's just done for. The Tea Party is the true conservative party now. The GOP failed us in the election. And that was not Mitt Romney's fault, by the way. That was the GOP elite. They're dangerous. But they've sunk their own ship, folks. And I have an article which is going to help explain why. Good evening, folks. I'm Sam Whitfield, broadcasting live from the Next Gen Conservative Studios here in glorious Colorado. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving and Black Friday. I didn't do any shopping on Black Friday. Well, that's not true. I did look online for some stuff. I never go shopping on Black Friday. In fact, hopefully this isn't too much information for some of you, but on Black Friday, I always tend to sit around in my bathrobe and do my shopping online. That's just how I roll. And I am getting over this cold still, but I'm getting there. So without further ado, let's launch in today's program because, as always, time is a little limited. But the telephone number, if you want to call in, is 714-816-4740. Follow me on Twitter at SamW_NGC. And as always, you can go to my website over at theanalysisnow.wordpress.com and email me there if you want to. I have my colleague Braxton Clark generously, sorry, I can't speak tonight, Braxton. Generously posted an article to me on Facebook a while back, just a couple minutes ago, about the Republicans are now basically abandoning the their opposition to the tax, and they're going to compromise more. That's why I say that the Republican establishment is dead. So joining me tonight is Braxton Clark. And Braxton, I'm going to read this article out loud, but I'll have to bring you on so that you can comment afterwards. So, Braxton, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm doing great. I hope you get to feeling better.
Well, I'm getting there, sir. I'm getting there. But this article, boy, I can't believe I've seen it coming, but this is unbelievable. Anyway, folks, the headline of this article, it comes from Fox, and it says, more congressional Republicans break tax pledge for the sake of looming fiscal crisis. First paragraph. More congressional Republicans are breaking a long-standing pledge to oppose tax increases before returning to Washington on Monday to avert a looming fiscal crisis with a deal that increasingly appears impossible to reach without changes to the tax code. The decades-old pledge from the Americans for Tax Reform Group has been signed by 238 House members and 41 senators in this Congress and has essentially become inescapable for any Republicans seeking statewide or national office over recent election cycles, especially in the Republican controlled lower chamber. New York Representative Peter King and Senator Lindsey Graham said Sunday that they would break the pledge and accept tax changes to generate more revenue to curb the $1 trillion deficit. As if that's going to help us that much, folks. Their statements followed a similar one Thursday by Georgia Representative Senator Saxby Chambers. I agree completely with Saxby. Oh, it's Bliss. King said on NBC's Meet the Press. A pledge you signed 20 years ago or 18 years ago is for that Congress. The world has changed, and the economic situation is different. The New York congressman said he was opposed to tax increases, but that everything should be on the table when President Obama, House Speaker John Boehner, and Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid tried to broker a deal. I'm not going to prejudge it, and I'm not going to say we should be taking ironclad positions, King said. I have faith that Boehner can put together a good package. Should Congress and the White House fail to reach an agreement, a $500 billion mix of federal cuts and unrelated tax increases would kick in January 2nd. The result of lawmakers failing to reach a more measured approach to cutting the deficit and keeping the country from going off over the so-called fiscal cliff. Well, in my mind, we've already gotten there, folks. The across-the-board cuts to the federal budget would equal more than $1 trillion over the next 10 years. Graham has suggested earlier that he would be open to changes in taxes, but repeated Sunday only if Democrats are willing to cut federal spending by scaling back entitlement programs like Medicare and Social Security. Well, they're not going to cut that because they're Democrats. I will violate the pledge, long story short, for the good of the country only if the Democrats will do entitlement reform, he said on ABC's This Week. He also said that the only pledge should be made when the country in trillions debt is to avoid becoming Greece. Sorry, I'm not sure I read that. Right. Republicans should put revenue on the table, he continued. We don't generate enough revenue. However, Graham says he agreed with pledge champion Grover Norquist that tax rates should not be increases and instead suggested generating revenue through capping tax deductions. Indiana Democratic Senator Dick Durbin on the same show acknowledged that his party needs to bring entitlement reform into the conversation. He included Medicare and Medicaid, but argued Social Security should be kept off the table because it is a separately funded operation that doesn't add to the deficit. And he argued for tax increases for the country's highest earners, which is already going to happen. President Obama has suggested 10-year savings totaling roughly $4.4 trillion. In addition, Arizona Senator Republican John McCain said Sunday that he wants an approach similar to Graham's, closing the so-called tax loopholes to raise revenue, but no increases to the marginal tax rates. We can close a lot of loopholes, he said on Fox News Sunday, identifying deductions on charitable donations and on mortgage interest. Wow. I know I read that sort of fast, so if you need to read the article, folks, I posted that up on my Twitter. But, Braxton, what do you think of all this?
I think it's actually kind of pathetic, considering we're here. I mean, me and you are both the next generation of voters in this country. We're waiting until the next election for our voice to actually be heard, and we can actually make a difference. And in the meantime, the representatives that are elected to Congress right now are basically blowing it for us ahead of time before we even get our own voice. Even the people who call themselves Republicans or conservatives who originally ran on the platform of low taxes and lowering taxes and continue to lower taxes and decrease spending are now willing to compromise and give in for an increase of taxes in return for increased revenue. That's the rhetoric we've been hearing from the Democrats this whole time, is we have to increase revenue. Sure, that's true, but the way to get to that is through decreasing taxes and decreasing spending. That's the root of it all, is we're spending trillions of dollars. We have a $1.1 trillion deficit for just this fiscal year.
Yeah.
The key of it is going to be centered on decreasing spending. And apparently these moderate Republicans we keep electing to Congress don't get the idea straight that it's not taxes. The majority of it has to do with spending.
Yeah, well, as Rush Limbaugh always says on his show, you cannot tax yourself to prosperity. And it's, the whole thing with the moderate, Republicans is they seem to think that if we just play ball with the Democrats, everything is going to be hunky-dory. And, I always find it funny because the Democrats are always saying, well, you need to compromise more. You need to compromise more. You need to compromise more. But yet, I'm not sure, at least in my lifetime, I've never heard them say, okay, we're going to compromise Social Security, we're going to compromise Medicaid, what I would love to see them compromise is, obviously I'd like to see Obamacare put on that table, but they're not going to put Obamacare on that table. Obamacare is going to be the thing that sucks our money away continuously, and they're not bringing that issue up. So, I don't know what to think anymore about the moderates. I honestly think, as I said in the beginning of the program, I think in terms of the people's view, the GOP is done for. People I've talked to are really frustrated with the way that the Republican Party is handling things. They're not conservative anymore, according to the people I've talked to, and I have to say that unfortunately I agree with them now. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Coming January 1st, when we hit the fiscal cliff, there's one of two scenarios that's going to happen. Either, one, we get some slight compromise out of the Democrats, which means we still have an increase of taxes, but as stated in the article, they may compromise on spending on entitlement programs, but we're still going to see an increase of taxes. Or the second option is we just go ahead and jump off the fiscal cliff, which is exactly what President Obama wants, as he stated, I want to increase taxes on the wealthy, as he stated the failure to extend the Bush tax cuts would do exactly that, as he wants to do so. So either way, the Democrats are going to win in this scenario. We're going to see taxes increased, and their Keynesian economics policy is just going to continue us down the road we're already on. In terms of the GOP being finished, hopefully they have a complete turnabout is what I'm hoping for, basically because they're all just moderates, and we can see this by the nomination of Mitt Romney to run against President Obama. He was such a moderate. George W. Bush was a moderate. We keep nominating moderates for our Congress and for the presidency. And at the best, that's just going to slow us down on the slope we continue to tumble down.
Right.
It's not going to turn us the other way.
Right. Obviously, it's going to help. It's not going to turn us the other way. Well, is there, because I'm becoming increasingly cynical about this. Obviously, we're stuck with Obama for the next 4 years unless he does something incredibly drastic that will get him impeached. But, assuming that we're stuck with him for the next 4 years, is there anything in your mind that we can do to help prevent this situation from going from bad to worse?
I think probably petitioning these congressmen who are talking about increasing taxes, and the ones who claim to be actual Republicans, because they're not doing what we originally elected them to office to do. they're basically compromising on their own values, which the people elected them to uphold.
Right.
And that's atrocious. It really makes me sick because we elect these people as basically filters for policy and legislation that's proposed. And they filter that legislation through their own values, which they reign on. If they change those values, those filters change. And we no longer can trust those particular candidates. And they can see themselves not getting reelected or nominated the next term. Hopefully is that we can get this word out, petition them, show that we no longer will support them if they're beginning to switch sides like this.
Yeah.
Jumping ship when we're at a time like this is going to make us sink.
Yeah, I mean, well, and the other thing is, I wrote a blog about this a while ago. It was actually before the election. The GOP, I hate to say it, Braxton, but the GOP in and of itself virtually has no respect for me at all anymore. I'm a full-blown Tea Party supporter. However, if the GOP wants to get back in my good graces, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming if they want to get back on any true conservatives' good graces, what they need to do is grow some cojones big time and say, no, these are our values. We want smaller government, limited taxes, and whatnot, and we're going to oppose everything until you can at least meet us halfway. I mean, we've met them more than halfway. But the Republican Party has met them more than halfway on taxes, and what have they given us in return? Nothing. And it really makes me concerned about what's going to happen for the future. Now, also, the other thing I heard about in the news is they're already floating a couple names for who's going to run for president in 2016. One of them is Marco Rubio. I don't know that much about Marco Rubio at all, so what do you think about that possibility, and who would you like to see run in the next go-round?
Well, I personally don't think Marco Rubio would run for president. As him as a person, I don't think he personally would want to do something like that. But people I support are the people I supported from the very beginning of this election, which were Herman Cain and Newt Gingrich.
Yay!
After Herman Cain dropped out, then I became a Gingrich supporter because he was the closest one who lined up with my values, except for the whole colonizing the moon idea. I didn't quite follow on that one.
Yeah, I don't think any of us really followed on the colonizing the moon idea. I mean, yeah. No, I don't think anybody really followed that idea. Well, the one thing too, and we talked about this on Google Hangout off air, but just for on air, we could rehash this conversation a little bit. And I've stated this on my radio show before. I really think Herman Cain ought to run again, but I think the reason why he got why he dropped out so early in the election was because he got taken out. The Democrats are afraid of a black conservative, and a strong black conservative. I mean, if you look at Herman Cain's story, he's basically like the American underdog story. He worked his way up through the ranks of business to eventually become president of Godfather's Pizza, and then I forget what company it is, but he eventually rose up to become the CEO of the company that owns like Pepsi and Burger King and Pillsbury and whatnot. I honestly think he's our best. I think he was our best hope this go around, but I think obviously the Democrats are going to keep playing the race card if they can, and they're going to keep on trying to prove that we're racist. And I think if we show them that we're not racist, and that Herman Cain is our guy, I think that will really improve. If Herman Cain and Gordon Gingrich don't make it in, who else do you think could be good?
Who else do I think? Well, then I think you open up. Well, who I think will run. I think there's a chance that Rand Paul will run. I would never support him in the election, but there's that chance he'll run. I know he's got a lot of supporters. I have a bunch of Ron Paul fans. They're like, now it's time for Rand Paul's turn. I personally don't support that, but there's a good chance he'll run like his father. Rubio, again, there's that possibility. I'm not entirely sure if he'll run or not. Mitt Romney, I doubt he'll run again. I mean, he's run was 2 times now. He's lost both times. So I know I'm not entirely sure who's going to run in 2016. I think right now our focus needs to be more in 2014.
Yeah, 2014 is definitely an interesting scenario in terms of taking. Well, we already have the House, and we already have the Senate. I mean, we need to take the Senate. I mean, the other thing, though, is with that, am I the only one who's? I know this is kind of a rhetorical question, but am I the only one that's a little disappointed? That's more than a little disappointed in John Boehner and how he's handled things.
Yeah, John Boehner is just another moderate Republican who's probably going to be the one who's going to lead the compromise charge once they start setting up deals with the Obama administration about the fiscal cliff.
What? I mean, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories here and whatnot, but when I first followed John Boehner, when I first heard about him, I mean, originally he seemed to be like a pretty conservative guy. Like a lot of these Republicans that are now compromising seem to be pretty decent guys. So what happened? Were they blackmailed or what?
I don't think they were blackmailed. I just don't think they were very strong candidates to begin with. That's the problem with the GOP and the Republican base is we keep nominating moderates, and that's not going to get us anywhere. Like I said before, if they even get elected to begin with, they're only going to slow our descent, not return us back to the way we once were.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the other thing, too, is I've heard for, a call for a new party. I've gotten a couple invites from some conservative friends to sign a petition to make the Tea Party an actual political party and unroot the GOP, which I have very mixed emotions about, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's probably the worst thing that could happen right now because when you see, in election terms, it's called the spoiler effect. What happens is you have, right now, a 2-party system. If a third party enters a race, then you're going to split the 2 parties that are closest to each other. In the case of a Tea Party becoming an actual politically involved, nominating a candidate, party running for president, then you're going to have the Republicans and the Tea Party people basically split the vote, making sure that the Democrats will be able to win again for sure in 2016. That's the problem with a 2-party system is whenever a third party comes in, it's always going to mess up the election. So basically having that third party, Tea Party come in, going to cause a spoiler effect, that's going to get a Democrat elected again in 2016. And we already know how bad the 4 past years have already been. And we can only predict of how bad the next 4 years have been. Imagine another 8 years of continuing down the same course. It's the absolute last thing we want. And if I were to confront anyone who was thinking about the possibility of forming a third party or going Rand Paul in 2016, don't do it, or you really are dooming a country, not helping it.
That's honestly, I I have my webcam on right now. I'm broadcasting to Ustream as well, and that's honestly a really chilling thought to think about the possibility of having a, I mean, another Democratic president. It's wow. That's almost a nightmare to think about. So, any final thoughts about the the budget or anything else?
I'm sorry, say again?
Any final thoughts about the budget or anything else?
Well, I think the best thing we can hope for is that the Republican candidates extend the Bush tax cuts. That will at least keep us safe for a few more years, and that's what we want. In a perfect world scenario, then we could just basically do away with the entire tax code as it is right now. And I was actually listening to another radio show on Blog Talk Radio the other day done by Amy Lutz, and she is a contributor to The Blaze. And she was talking about how we need to abolish a tax code and implement the flat tax. And I completely agree with that approach. Basically, the art, laugh, or flat tax would be a way to turn around our economy and our country and return us to a point where we are increasing revenue on a yearly basis, making more money than we are now, and helping the private sector along turn us in another direction, make more money in the pockets of every American and every business.
I agree with that too. One other thing, how do you think the conservative youth movement, the right now conservative youth movement, will affect the next election? Because obviously, like you and I and Tanner Wayne and Gregory Blackie, we will all be old enough to vote. Do you think the conservative youth movement is strong enough to the point in the next election where, when we're all adults, will we be able to have? Will there be enough of a conservative force to take back the White House in the next election? Do you think?
I think that's very difficult to say, because not only do we have to make our votes count, but we have to be able to influence the other youth that are growing up along with us and will be voting with us next election. That's going to be pretty difficult, and I think the only way we're ever going to achieve that is to band together. I mean, right now, I can go on the internet and I find so many different organizations and so many different websites of conservative youth, and it seems to not be a cohesive force. If you look at, say, Democrats and the liberals, you have the unions, and you have a unifying force behind everything that they're pushing, and they're voting, and they're busing people. I'm not saying we have to bus people. I'm just saying we have to be a little bit more unified than thousands of websites and thousands of organizations that aren't even in communication with each other. I'm not even sure how to achieve that goal, but I'm just saying that we have to become more unified, realize that we're all on the same side in this fight to retake our country, and group together ourselves and then change everyone else who's voting along with us.
Well, that sounds good, and I've got some ideas on how to do that if you want to talk after the radio show. But for right now, Braxton, thank you for coming on, my friend. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And as always, folks, we had a great show today. Braxton sent me that article in like the last 5 minutes of show prep today, so that was kind of unexpected, but it was a very productive show today. I always enjoy having him on. Folks,
10 seconds.
Oh, shut up. Oops, sorry, folks. I'll get over this cough soon. Folks, it is that time of year again, believe it or not. It is Christmas season now, officially. And, Black Friday happens, Cyber Monday happens tomorrow. Now is the time to start doing your Christmas shopping, and we've got some great deals over at the Next Gen Conservative Wardrobe Store, which I will post a link to that on the Facebook page. You can get polos, t-shirts, jacket, caps. You can even get coffee mugs and hats over there. For the month of December, by popular request, we will be talking more holiday issues and more what the meaning of Christmas is and whatnot. I do want to give you guys a little bit of a break from politics, because I know that this entire year, starting from January of 2012, was just bonkers with political stuff. I really appreciate you guys for sticking in with me in there, and December is coming, so we'll figure some stuff out. If there are any topics that you'd like to talk about which aren't politically related but somehow related to the holiday season, send them to me. Tweet me at samw_NGC with the hashtag NGC Christmas. And I'll take those under advisement, and we've got some things that we want to discuss as well. But in the meantime, folks, I hope your Turkey Day was good. Black Friday was good. Mine was good. And yes, it is unfortunately a school day and a work day tomorrow, but we'll get through it. Only a couple more weeks until Christmas, folks. So, anyway, I will talk to you next week, and from all of us here at Next Gen Conservative Studios, including Braxton, who's a colleague of mine, we wish you good night, God bless America, and stay in there, folks. God bless you all.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.